Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about actually using this primary arms SLX 5 to 26 by 56 first focal plane. Okay, so as you can see, it is a big scope. The scope and the mount that I have there, that's a UTG. It weighs, it's basically 2.5 pounds. Okay, so on a 16-inch an AR-15 with a 16-inch barrel, that's going to make the rifle weigh about 9 pounds. Okay, without the magazine in it. So it adds significant weight, but it gives us significant capability. Okay, now there is a learning curve here, right? If you're like me, because in years past I worked with red dots with magnifiers, and I've done a lot of work with LPVOs. So going from an LPVO, right, and your typical LPVO is like 1 to 8 power, right? Usually 8 power is your max, or 1 to 10 power. Well, what happens is in your max magnification, you can see the entire reticle, and usually we depend on the reticle. We use the reticle for our holdovers. We don't dial usually with an LPVO. Okay, so what happens is with a scope that goes all the way up to 25 magnification. Okay, when you dial in, okay, and you're looking at the mill grid, because it has like a Christmas tree mill grid in there. When you zoom in, okay, the lowest you can see is like 7, right? So the mill grid goes like all the way down to 15. Well, the lowest that you can see is 7 because you've zoomed in. Okay, so if you're shooting at distance, right, and if we got a scope like this size, we're planning to be shooting 500 to 1,000 yards with a scope this size. So what happens is, if I'm, let's say, at 800 yards, um, if I'm at 800 yards, I'm probably going to be somewhere about 10 mils down. So if I'm just using the reticle, right, if I'm just using the mill grid, that is out of my field of view, right? I'm not going to be able to see the 10 mil line, okay, when I'm zoomed up to max magnification at 25. So the reticle and this turret have to work together. So what that means is, if I expect that that I'm going to be about 10 mils down on my mill grid, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dial up. All right, I'm going to dial up 10 mils on my turret, and now use the tip of the chevron. Right, so whatever I think I'm going to be, whatever line I think I'm going to be using on the mill grid, I'm going to dial up on the turret and use the tip of the chevron. Now, I'm still going to use the mill grid. The way that's going to work is, when I put the tip of my chevron on the bullseye, if the impact is, let's say, at 2 mils, right? So let's say I was a little off and the bullet drops and it's at 2 mils, and then so it's 2 mils down and 1 mil over to the right on that dot I see. So now that dot is going to be my new point of aim. So I'm going to take that dot, move it to the bullseye, and start and pull the trigger. So I'm going to use the impacts on the grid to determine the hold point. So the first shot is to kind of figure out where your point of impact is, right? And the second shot moves that point of impact, right? Because you're using the mill grid as a map. You use that new point of impact as your aiming point, and you're going to get on target with your second shot. So that shift can be, because you might have wind moving you too. So if the wind moves, it moves in a different direction or picks up speed. Again, you're going to see where the impact is on your grid and move it. So in order to use that grid, okay, we want to be able to use the full grid. So here, right, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it, but I have in here a 22 conversion bolt, right? And the great thing about using these 22s, right, I got these CMMG 22 magazines, is that at 200 yards, right, the 22 long rifle is going to have a similar drop to a 5.56 at like 700 yards. Okay, so I'm able to use these 22s to practice what I would normally need a 700-800 yard range to do with 5.56. Okay, so there's especially if you're coming to a 5 to 25 scope from an LPVO. Okay, there's a learning curve. You may as well use the cheaper ammunition and the shorter range to learn the things that you need to learn. Okay, so that's one of the great things about having this 22 over here, right? So with the 22s, I've set this to a 50-yard zero. Okay, so when I shot this with at 200 yards, I saw that the point of impact, right, was on the 6 mil line, right? So when I set it for 50-yard zero, shot it at 200 yards, I saw that my bullets were and I could actually see them in the snow, were impacting 6 mils down. Okay, now the 6 mils is right at the bottom of my field of view, right? So what I did is I dial up 6 mils, right? So let's say I start here at 0. So what I do is I just dial up to 6. Okay, so now instead of using that 6 line, I now use the tip of the chevron, and that's what I hold on. Now what happens is if the wind shifts it left or right, or let's say the bullet drops, let's say 1 mil down, well, that's my new hold point. Okay, now this Turrent has a 0 stop, and I covered that in a different video how to set it. So the point is that I can go back and forth on this, and you can see these little lines over here, right? So you can see as I turn this down, it goes and it stops at what I've now set as the 0. And these little screws over here, these Allen screws that you unscrew, and you can turn this so that you can get this to line up. Okay, so if you look over here, when I bottom out, I'm kind of at the halfway point, right? You can see how I'm at the halfway point right there. So I could go, because the 0 stop is preventing this from going all the way down. Okay, so one of the things that you're going to find is with this type of a scope, you're only using, if you have like a 0 MOA mount, like I have here right now. This is the UTG mount. This is like $35. This is temporary. Just have it on there. You're only going to be using like the top half of the available Turrent travel, right? The Turrent adjustments. So what you want to do is get the 20 MOA mount, which I've ordered. Okay, that's on its way. And what that's going to do is it's going to point the scope slightly up, so that when I zero in, right, I'm going to be basically at the bottom. Where are those? I'm going to be near the bottom over here, and I'm going to have like a full, a full like 30 mils adjustment. Okay, so I'm able to use the full adjustment of this scope. So you definitely want to get a 20 MOA mount. The one I got was from Arkin. It was like $70. They usually run for like $150 to like $250. So the $70 one from Arkin, especially if you're running budget, right? Because here's the thing: this is a $500 Palmetto AR over here, right? It's a Palmetto upper, right? You can see Palmetto right there, okay? And it, with good ammo, this thing will hit 1 inch at 100 yards. It's on an aerial lower that I built. All right, so again, the whole thing is $500 AR there, and this scope here, the SLX, this is a $500 scope. Okay, so it doesn't make sense for me to put like a $250 mount to, in between these two. So the Arkin one at $70 is a good match, and I'll do a full review when I get it, but I expect that that's gonna work great. Okay. So that's the main thing I wanted to explain to you guys, how to actually use the scope, and how the reticle, the mil grid that you have in the scope, works together with your turrets. Okay, because if you're coming to this from an LPVO, you don't dial. And when I bought this, because this is my first 5 to 25, I bought this with the expectation of not dialing, of just using the reticle for my bullet drops. But I quickly realized that, hey, at 25 power, I can only see a small portion of the reticle, because first focal plane, I'm so zoomed in. So you have to dial up in order to be able to use the reticle. Okay. Now the other thing that we got to mention here, because if you're coming to this from an LPVO, you're going to have this parallax adjustment over here, right? You see this knob over here, right? So with the LPVOs, usually we just have the diopter in the back, right, for focusing. Now, the diopter in the back, what this really focuses is the reticle, okay, not the target. Now, it just so happens that the reticle and the target, you know, kind of are pretty close. So you're sort of able to, on an LPVO, you're sort of able to get away with just using the diopter to focus the reticle and the target. And I think with most LPVOs are parallaxed, I think to maybe 200 yards or something, or 150 to 200. So you know, with an LPVO, usually what I find is if I'm shooting at 100 at like 50 yards versus 200 yards, I do have to make a little bit of adjustment. So you can kind of get away with using the diopter on an LPVO. However, here we're looking to get out to 1,000 yards, so we actually have this parallax adjustment to help us. So what the parallax adjustment does is this focuses to the target. Okay, so that the diopter focuses to the reticle, and the way you focus this is you point the rifle at something featureless like the snow here, which is kind of convenient, and you come up, you get on the rifle, you focus it so that the reticle is clear. And on this scope, because I have numbers on it, right, for the you know, I focus on the numbers because it's kind of like an eye chart, right? So I want to focus like the numbers on the mill lines so that they're clear. And then what you do is you come off the scope, you look at the snow, you get back on it, and as soon as you get back on it, the reticle or the numbers on the reticle should be immediately clear. Okay, if you have to work, if they start off blurry and then they come into focus, well, that's your eye working to bring it into focus. So you want to keep doing this, so when you get on the rifle, when you get in the scope rather, the numbers are immediately in focus without initially being blurry. Okay. With the parallax adjustment over here, there are numbers here from 15 yards going up to like infinity, right? That's that figure 8 over there. You don't necessarily go by this, just rotate it until the target comes into focus. Okay, so don't expect this to be 100%, because that's gotta also has to match up to your eye. So rotate this until the target comes into focus. So this is your true focus adjustment. Okay, so the diopter in the back, you're just gonna get the reticle focus to your eye, and that should be like a one-time thing. Okay, unless somebody else gets on your rifle, the diopter in the back should really never move again. Okay, the focal thing over here, where you focus the target, that you're gonna adjust every time you get on this to different distances. Okay, so that's how you're gonna use the parallax adjustment. And the great thing about the parallax adjustment is if you move your head slightly to the side, you know, as you come into focus on the parallax adjustment, the reticle and the target are in the same plane, so there's no shift. Okay, so that's one of the things that's not true with LPVOs, but again, it tends to be less of an issue because you don't have as much magnification on this type of a scope. That it would be more of an issue if you did not have that parallax adjustment. Okay, so those are the two main things that are going to be different on this 5 to 25 by 56 first focal plane scope compared to the LPVO that you might be using in the past. Okay, you've got a parallax adjustment. Okay, all right, that's for focusing to the target. Diopter's for focusing the reticle. Okay, and then you're gonna have to dial up, because if you don't, the mill grid is going to be out of your field of view at the bottom. Okay, because when you go all the way up to 25 power, the lowest you can see in here is 7 mils, right? You're not going to be able to see the bottom part of your mill grid, so you have to dial up in order to be able to make use of the full mill grid. So listen, we're going to take some shots now at 200 yards. So what's happening is, again, because this has that zero stop, when I get behind the rifle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that to 6 mils. Okay, I'm going to turn that to 6 mils, and that should put me right on target. I'm going to be using the tip of the chevron at the 200 yards. All right, guys, let's good. And by the way, I didn't bring the bags out today. I've got this CV Life bipod. This thing has come in really useful. This is kind of on par with the one from Magpul, except that this is cheaper. Okay, I think it's something like $25. It's good. Initially, I did an initial review on this with initially the locking mechanism here, because that's basically locked onto a 3-slot rail that I typically use as an anchoring point for my hand. Well, this has broken in, right, and this is working great. Okay, initially I wasn't so great about how this locking mechanism, the quick detach, was matching up to the 3-slot rail, but with some use, it's broken in, and it clamps on pretty good. Okay, and the sling that I'm using here today, this is from Brash Tactical. It's a fast loop sling, definitely necessary. Like as you're walking through the woods, through the snow. I mean, you know, it is, you know, bringing out like sandbags and stuff like that can be a big of a hassle. So it's a lot more convenient if I can strap the rifle to my back here, and you know, and then use the bipod to get on target. Oh, the other thing that I have found is important is if you look over here, you'll notice I have a bubble level over here, right? That's the Monstrum bubble level. I'm finding that is kind of necessity, because if the gun is canted, that's going to shift the bullets, right, left or right. And one of the things I'm finding is a lot of times I'm here and I'm like, okay, the gun is level to the table, but the problem is that the ground may be uneven. Okay, so as I look out there and I'm using the lines in the scope to kind of level out to the ground, what I'm finding when I look down at the bubble level is that the gun is canted relative to the center of the earth. Okay, so you have to match the cant of the rifle. You have to make this straight relative to gravity, because the bullet is interacting with gravity, not with the shape of the earth. Okay, so that's why I have found that the bubble level is sort of indispensable. You gotta have it, and it's like $15. This one's the one from Monstrum. All right, so dial up. All right, so we're up 6 mils. And usually I gotta dial back a little bit in order to be able to find my target out there. And then zoom up. Okay, I'm on a target. And I'm gonna check my bubble, make sure that I'm centered. There you go, I'm centered. Two, three, 4. Okay, now it should be at 25. All right, so I had a full mag, 25 rounds. All right, let's go downrange. I have a paper set out there that I was shooting at. Let's see how many hits. I could see in the scope that I got one wild impact that it just like took a chunk out of the paper. I don't know if it impacted the ground and bounced up, or I don't know. You guys will see it when I get down there, but I could see that I had one impact, like just like completely did some, like took a chunk out of the paper. All right, let's see what we got. That paper over there. You can see that tear from here. I don't know. I'm wondering if I hit this stump over here and something bounced up into it. Let's get this up here, off the ground, up here. Yeah. So we took, yeah, what the fuck should I put this? Let's put it not right there. I'm gonna put this someplace where I can, there we go, we'll put it there. Okay, so at 200 yards, now ignore the circle ones, those are from earlier, right? So you got 1, 2, 3 hits from earlier. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened here. Something bounced up, came up like this, and impacted that way. I don't know, maybe, I think maybe one of the, I was using basically bulk, like Federal bulk 22s, so the cheap 22s at 200 yards. So, I mean, we're still able to get hit. So that's 1, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know what that is, 5, 6, there's 2 in there, ignoring that circle, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's a 10th one there. I have no idea what, hold on, let me straighten out this paper here. See what that, yeah, somehow that freaking bullet came there and it went up. I don't know how the freak it did that. And they got a weird tear there. I don't know what that is. That looks like something that maybe some type. I got 2 hits over here on the box. 1, 2. A third one over here. So hold on, another one on the box here. So let's count this again on the paper. On the that's a hit there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold on. Oh, I see what happened. Is that a hit there? No, it's not a hit. So it's again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 6. One on the bullseye there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 on the paper. All right, and then on the edges of the box, we've got 11. Okay, we're not counting that. 11. Oh, shit. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16, right? Came out there. 16. Is that a new one? Yeah, it's a new one. 17. So 17 out of 25 on this box. So with bulk 22, using the CMMG 22 conversion bolt at 200 yards. I mean kudos to both Palmetto and CMMG and primary arms for the scope. I mean, because this thing's only about 12 inches across, right? So that's 12 by 12 basically, this box. So at 200 yards with cheap bulk 22 Federal auto match, we got these. I mean, I think we did pretty good. 17 out of 25. So let me know what you guys think. I think this is very satisfactory.